This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Snap Read show for, I'm sorry? Did you say something, Joe?
I can hear you now. I could not hear you at the start.
Okay, great. That was actually the intro to the show. But Joe Gavassi, welcome to the Pre-Snap Read Show. This is the Pre-Snap Read Show for Wednesday, October 17th. Of course, we do this every week at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. We cover a selection of games from NFL and from college football. And, of course, one thing I do in all of my videos, including this one, track the records religiously. We use up to the second lines, nothing stale, and we track the records religiously. Of course, Joe Gavassi and Al McMorty, our two regular guests, have absolutely nothing to prove in these videos. Al McMorty is 17-18 though overall, and Joe Gavassi 11-14 according to my numbers. Ian Cameron, though, younger guy, does have something to prove, and Ian Cameron, you have done it. Ian Cameron, I don't know if you've been tracking your record in these shows. I don't know if this is in line with how you've been doing in general this year in football, but in the picks that you've given in the Pre-Snap Reads show, Ian Cameron, 33-19. Unbelievable. 33-19, 63%, plus 12.5 units, plus 21.8% ROI. Ian Cameron, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you come from. I don't know what your deal is, but that's one hell of a record. What do you have to say for yourself, Ian Cameron?
Well, I got to do the old Michael Jordan against the Portland Trailblazers and just go,
There you go.
What can I say? Shrug my shoulder. I can't, it's you know what? We do work hard. We put in the time. We put in the effort on a weekly basis, and it's nice to see, to have that kind of start, 33-19. But I'm going to harp on it, and I say this every week because I know every week, Peter, you've said, good work, Ian, so far. It's not about last week. It's not about 2 weeks ago. It's not about last month. It's about what we're going to do moving forward, and specifically what we're going to do this week. And hopefully we can just keep our nose down, keep grinding, keep working, and go for more.
Absolutely right. And, of course, Joe Gavassi, our regular viewers know how great he has been long-term. Also coming off a winning week, a nice 2-1 in 1 week, including winners on Tennessee and Michigan State. Last week, I was on Penn State. Ian Cameron was on Penn State. We were kind of smug about it. We were pretty sure we were on the right side of that one. No, Joe Gavassi was on Michigan State. One of Ian Cameron's losers last week was Penn State, one of my losers as well. Joe Gavassi, great call on Michigan State. How did you know that was going to happen? I thought it was a terrible spot for Michigan State.
See, we each were not sure about how the Nittany Lions were going to respond. I was fairly certain from the information I had from that school that they were in a little bit of a down mode, and I'm still not sure they're going to get back up off it for a while.
Really? Okay. Maybe I just have a bad read on this team, but I will admit that I did give as an official pick and bet Penn State -14 against Indiana. If they can't get up for this game against Indiana, they can't roll Indiana. Who can they roll? But that's not one of the games we're going to cover right now. Joe Gavassi, we're going to start with one of the marquee games that everyone is talking about, NC State against Clemson. This is a line that I bet on the opening line. I did bet NC State when it was at plus 17. It's since dropped down to about 16 or 15.5. And I gave that as a lean in the Low Shack in the Bag shows, not an official pick, but we know that NC State traditionally plays Clemson very, very tough, very, very tight. And this year's NC State team, they lost a lot of talent to the NFL. It was maybe looking like it was going to be a down year for them, but statistically, they're looking better than ever, catching a big number here. What do you like here, Joe Gavassi?
Well, the question must be faux or faux real. These are a couple of undefeated teams coming in here. NC State at 5-0, Clemson at 6-0. Who comes out of this with that first loss and looking a little phony? Now, remember, Clemson can still get the win, but not beat the spread. And I think that's exactly what is going to happen here, as I'll be siding with the NC State Wolfpack in this. Well, Swinney made his point in the last game 2 weeks ago. A lot of people questioned, you're going to put in a freshman quarterback here rather than a guy who's led you to the playoffs the last couple of years? That doesn't make any sense, Dabo. Well, they came out and proved that what he said was for real. Only 63-3 over Wake, in which they rolled up nearly 698 balanced yards. Not too many people are going to fade them here this week. But that's the thing to do, in my opinion here. They've only beaten the Wolfpack by 7 points each of the last 2 years. And last year with quarterback Finley, this year's quarterback as well, the Wolfpack passed for 338 yards against Clemson. Now that's meaningful because let's flash forward to this year when the two teams that Clemson has faced, Texas A&M and Syracuse, took them to the wire with just such a passing offense. As we've discussed on this show, even if there's an Achilles heel for Clemson, it is that secondary, that passing defense, and I think that could well show up here today. Now, neither of these teams have really played a hard schedule, especially NC State, but they do have a defense allowing just 17 points, 341 yards, and only 3.7 yards per rush. In addition, let me throw out an 82% technical angle for you, and that's playing Game 6 undefeated road dogs in this price range. A very strong situational play. Make it NC State for me, backed by both technicals and fundamental plays.
All right, sounds good. There was actually a recent line move that happened very recently. It didn't catch. A big line move back in favor of Clemson. Like I said, I bet this one at NC State plus 17, and I gave it as a lean when it was at 16.5. It's now back up to 17 or 17.5 at some places market-wide. So, Joe Gavassi, we will credit you line shopping here at SBRodds.com with NC State plus 17.5, minus 110. That is a market line right now. The market is split 17 or 17.5. Ian Cameron, I'm also thinking about the NC State team total over here because, as Joe Gavassi said, this is a very, very impressive passing game that NC State has, and Clemson is vulnerable defensively. So I'm not exactly sure what Clemson's going to do offensively, but I have to think that NC State will at least put up 20 in this one. Recent market move in favor of Clemson. What's your take on this one, Ian Cameron?
Yeah, NC State's shown me they're not going anywhere this season. I mean, I think for the most part, I thought their defense would step down a little bit this season, but their defense has maintained good play so far. Ryan Finley's a senior quarterback. I don't think going into Death Valley is going to shake his boots whatsoever. His numbers have been tremendous to this point. 69% completions, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Great numbers for him. Trevor Lawrence has been good. I mean, that's going to be a challenge for this NC State defense facing Trevor Lawrence, and he's had a great season as well. He got injured, of course, that game against Syracuse, came back, and obviously showed in the Wake Forest game he's good to go, and he's a force at the quarterback spot. But you look at Clemson, their two toughest foes this season, they gave them everything they could handle. Texas A&M, Syracuse, 2 games that went right down to the wire. Clemson life or death to win both of them. Clemson's had a tough time with NC State in terms of winning by margin against them the last 2 seasons, as Joe Gavassi mentioned. So I'm right in line with everybody else here. I'm looking at NC State plus these points. I think they're very capable of hanging here on the road. I'll make that an official play for me.
Wow. All right. Ian Cameron's going to take NC State as well. That's the way I was thinking. Any thoughts, Ian Cameron or Joe Gavassi, on the curious line move in favor of Clemson? I mean, I guess that could be a big market move, but I don't know. I'm thinking that a midweek move like that across 17, that's big money. That's not a collection of small bets pushing that line up. That's some big bets, possibly sharp bets pushing the Clemson line up. What do you think, Ian Cameron?
Well, there is a long-term angle in college football where undefeated road underdogs that are undefeated are long-term, I think, losing proposition in a lot of situations, which may be indicating why some people like Clemson here in this spot, fading NC State in that situation. But from a matchup standpoint, I think NC State is a team that can take advantage of one of the things Clemson's a little bit suspect in, and that's their pass defense. They've got one of the best D-lines in college football. But if you look at NC State's profile this season, Gillespie's a solid running back, but most of their production offensively is through the air in the passing game, and I think that's where they might be able to attack Clemson a little bit. I also lean to this game over the total, actually, because I still think this is also the game where NC State's defensive step back, it hasn't shown up yet, but this could be the game where we finally see NC State give up some yards, give up some points.
Yeah. Great answer. I hit Ian Cameron with a tough question, and he's got an answer for it. I was also thinking about the over as well. All right, so now let's move on to another game that I did give as an official pick. I might have made a mistake here. Might be on the wrong side of this one. Oklahoma and TCU. Now, we know that TCU is having all kinds of issues offensively this year, and I did wind up passing on the TCU-Texas Tech game as far as the side was concerned last week, but I wound up making the under an official play in the Low Shack in the Bag videos, and of course that one cashed very easily. Now they're going up against Oklahoma, who's putting up even more yards per play than they put up last year. This is a fearsome Oklahoma offense. The question is, how much will TCU's defense be able to contain Oklahoma here? TCU as a home dog getting a lot of points here. Traditionally, these two teams have played very close games, except last year where Oklahoma won both of their games by a big margin. Before that, every game was within a touchdown, and TCU getting more than a touchdown would be an automatic play. But again, last year, Oklahoma blew them out twice, and this year, TCU is looking like they have some pretty serious questions on offense. Right now, the line is TCU at home +8. Joe Gavassi, what do you think?
Well, this is my Lone Ranger game of the week. Just one of 20 games you can get in my point spread prognosis for only $9 at joegavazzisports.com. And it's a game that I've won 4 weeks in a row. It's a game where only you and I, guys, are going to bet TCU. Nobody else is going to bet this side. And that makes it all the better for me, I think. And, well, exactly what you pointed out. 2 blowout wins by Oklahoma last year, including that playoff game where they just decapitated TCU. And you think that TCU might be a great play as a conference revenge home dog. 0-4 recently. Another reason why nobody's going to back TCU in this one. You know, Oklahoma did put up a lot of points in that game versus the Texas Longhorns, but the defense was a shambles. And after the game, they fired their defensive coordinator, Stoops, brought in Ruffin McNeil to handle the chores. Not sure what that's going to mean, as the players may change over some of the defensive concepts or not. I don't think that's going to dissuade anybody from backing Oklahoma in this game. As you said, TCU has averaged just 16 points per game this year and is in the bottom 10% of giveaways and in turnover margin for the year. There's no love for the Horned Frogs in this one. The only thing I have is the contrary thinking of the Lone Ranger and a little 150 running dog theory that tells me TCU may be able to do a little bit of ball control against that Oklahoma defense. Let's go contrary here. Make it an official play on TCU +8.
All right, this is a very tough game. This is also a game that was assigned to Joe Gavassi. This was not a game that Joe Gavassi selected himself or requested himself. We assigned it to him, and he took it. He analyzed it, and he's going to go with TCU +8. I gave that one as an official pick as well. The more we go, the more we head closer to kickoff, the more I'm thinking I might have been on the wrong side just because of how awesome Oklahoma's offense is this year and how anemic TCU's offense has looked as well. Even if TCU can hold Oklahoma's offense down, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to score enough to keep this game in single digits. The more we head towards kickoff, I'm thinking about a shot with the under. What do you think, Ian Cameron?
I think from Oklahoma standpoint, this is addition by subtraction, getting rid of Mike Stoops as the defensive coordinator. I thought that guy was never a great coach. I thought a defensive coordinator, he was okay at times, but to me, he didn't have the demeanor to be, I think, a really good coach in terms of getting through to the kids. You would see him when he was the head coach of Arizona in the Pac-12 years ago. This guy would be stomping around on the sidelines with his blood vessel about to explode, about to have heart palpitations, screaming at the kids, freaking out at the refs on the sideline. He didn't keep that calm, poised demeanor at any point. And I think at some point people, that wears thin with people. You tune it out when that guy's just harping away constantly. I actually think long term this is going to be good for Oklahoma on the defensive side of the ball. I want to see if the players show me first before I step in to pass for me in this game. But I think Oklahoma under might make some sense in this game. I truly believe they're, Ruffin McNeil remains to be seen how he's going to affect this defense, but I think it cannot hurt and it can only help this team long-term moving forward without Mike Stoops. That guy didn't do much for me as a football coach or as a defensive coordinator. So if you want to be proactive, I think betting this game under the total might be a reasonable way to go.
That's what I was thinking as well, Ian Cameron. The closer we get to kickoff, the more I'm thinking that I don't like my bet on TCU, but I'm leaning towards the under more and more. All right, Joe Gavassi, the next game we're going to cover is Cincinnati Temple. This is another interesting game that's been highly controversial. Cincinnati, of course, is the ranked team, and they are the underdog here, and they're also off of a bye. In the Monday Low Shack in the Bag show, I gave Cincinnati as an official pick at +4. A few people, though, with close knowledge of this Temple team, warned me off of that when they said that they believe the Temple's going to roll. And then I gave the opinion that I thought the line was going to get bet down, and that if I want to take back my bet on Cincinnati, I'd be able to do it at 3, and that in fact has happened. Temple is now -3 at a bunch of places. The split line, 3 or 3.5. Temple, of course, has been great though. You know, they beat Navy, they covered the closing line on that one, and they clearly have a lot of momentum in their favor. But Cincinnati, an impressive team too. Two impressive teams going head to head here. What's your take on this one, Joe Gavazzi?
I'm going to be on your side here with the Bearcats. Here's what concerns me about this game. When the season would have opened, Temple would have been a double-digit favorite in this game. Now, all Cincinnati has done is win and beaten the spread. Temple has done even more. In the last 5 games, they've beaten the spread by 85 points. And yet there's been a line adjustment down in the last 8 weeks favoring Cincinnati. I sure feel more comfortable getting 10 points or so in this game. Nonetheless, we cannot ignore what has happened with this Cincinnati team, one of the biggest year-over-year improvements on the college football landscape. Last 2 years, 8-16 straight up, 7-15 ATS. Fickle came in, and you know what he says every day when he goes into his office, Peter? Let me tell you. He says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Really?
And that's exactly what he has to believe when he looks at his team's numbers. His team's numbers, he's outscoring the opposition 38-14. Yardage-wise, 200 yards better per game than his opponents, and more than 2 yards per play better than his opponents.
Are you making these stats up there, Joe Gavazzi? Those are real stats?
I am not making. These are real stats.
Okay.
These are just fantastic numbers. You know, he's got a nice quarterback in Ritter operating in the top pass defense in the country. It's a very, very impressive team. And, you know, actually undefeated. They don't get as much ink as they probably should be getting based on those stats. As I said, Temple playing every bit as well. And now they're going to get back running back Armstead, who missed the game last week, maybe the last 2, I'm not sure. And he's going to be a big part of balancing that offense. They're going to need it, his running ability against that Bearcat pass defense. But I've got 3 statistical indicators here which all strongly indicate a play on the Bearcats to me. The 150 running dog, the 150 club fade is a favorite for Temple, who allows more than 150, runs for less than 150, and finally the superior net yards per play average for a road dog, which is an 82% indicator recently. I've got to ride the momentum of the Cincinnati Bearcats as underdog in this one and still make the play at +3 or more.
Okay, it's a split line now. The best line is at the Greek, 3.5 -110. I bet this one at 4. I gave it as a play at 4. Again, but people, commenters that we really respect in the Low Shack in the Bag show, a couple of them warned me off it, said Temple's going to roll. One guy says that he has a connection to the team and he loves Temple this week. It has gotten bet down though, so I could go for a middle here, or a side at least, and take it back and take Temple -3. What would you recommend, Ian Cameron?
This is such a tough game for me because these are 2 teams that right now I'd rather bet on than bet against. You remember the Temple team 2 years ago, Pete and Joe? They were a team that had lost their very first game of the season against Army. I believe it was Matt Rule's final season as head coach at Temple before he bolted to Baylor. That season they lost their first game. I think they went on to cover the point spread after that first loss the rest of the way. I'm starting to think this Temple team has got similar traits in them. You look at their season so far, they lost their first 2 games against Villanova and Buffalo. And boy, they've covered every number and looked damn impressive ever since then. And I'm starting to think maybe this Temple team's starting to resemble that. So because of that, you know, it's a team that's been an undervalued commodity now for weeks. Anthony Russo has been a step up at quarterback for them from Frank Newtile, who is benched. They're going to get Raquel Armstead back at running back. Their defense has been rock solid. A lot of good things with Temple. I don't want to step in front of them, but I've been impressed with Cincy too. I mean, Luke Fickle's done a really good job. Desmond Ritter, they look like they found a quarterback. You know he's good when Hayden Moore is a senior quarterback, a starter for multiple years with this Cincinnati team, can't get on the field because Desmond Ritter's been so good. There's a lot to like with both of these teams. I don't want to bet against either one right now. Unfortunately, they're playing each other here in this game. The line looks about right.
Oh, no. Oh, no. What's going on? Can we fix this? We need Ian Cameron in these shows. We need Ian Cameron here. We can't do him without him. We can't do him without him. Oh, my.
What's the matter? You can't hear me?
There
See
he's
me?
No.
What's
Oh, now
going
you're
There
on?
he's
back. You
back.
froze. You froze.
I got him back.
Okay.
I got him back.
Okay, we're good? We're good?
All right.
Okay.
Close
All right,
call.
Ian Cameron. We didn't hear the end of your analysis there, but I think we can assume that this is a total pass for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Two teams I'd
Yes.
rather bet on than bet against.
I feel the exact same way. Whenever there's two teams with momentum, undervalued clearly, both teams that I'm looking to bet on in general any week, I'm always frustrated when they're playing against each other, and the game usually winds up being a pass for me. All right, last game we're going to talk about with Joe Gavassi, Western Michigan, Central Michigan. Interesting matchup here, right? Obviously a big MAC rivalry here. Western Michigan with that quarterback looking awesome. Central Michigan looking iffy offensively, but pretty strong defensively. They're usually a pretty big, burly, tough team to go up against, even when they're in a little bit of a down year. And this is another game that I bet and gave a pick on the opening line. I did take Central Michigan at +5. I gave it as an official pick in the Low Shack in the Bag show. And as of right now, we'll see if it comes back the other way. But the market has validated my opinion. It is now down to 4 or 3.5 market wide. Western Michigan, a very impressive team, but maybe just a little bit not quite as good as they've looked so far this year. And maybe Central Michigan has some value as an underdog in this rivalry game. That's what I was thinking. Joe Gavassi, what's your take on this one?
Here's the good news, Peter. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You can still buy back your bet and get on the right side.
And
that right side is Western Michigan in this game. Central Michigan is on the verge of being a towel tosser. This is a team that went to a bowl 4 consecutive years. Now they're sitting on the verge of not qualifying for a bowl. And if they are not able to get this victory, they will be out of luck for the season and will definitely be a towel tosser. Last year, Central won at the Western Michigan Broncos because the Broncos committed 4 turnovers. They outrushed by the Broncos 315 to 166. That was one of 4 games, close games, the Central won last year that allowed them to get to a bowl game. Now the chickens are coming home to roost, as they say. Only 10 returning starters for Central, and at last they are having their down year. Last week, happened again. 24-23 loss to Ball State when they blew a 20-7 fourth quarter lead. Now 0-3 in MAC play, 1-6 straight up. When these kind of teams who have been to bowl games for a number of years, don't have a lot of experience, when they get to that 6th win and begin to lose, they could quite easily toss the towel today. Did you know that the road team has covered in all 6 Central games this year? And the road team has covered in the last 6 games between these two. Further reasons to like my side today. But the big edge comes on offense. Huge edge for Western Michigan in this game behind quarterback Wassing. For the season, the Broncos are averaging 19 points a game more, 200 yards more, and 2.1 yards per play more than the host. I like Western Michigan here, laying the 4 points. With the Central Michigan season about to devolve into towel-tossing status, I'm laying the points with Western.
All right, Joe Gavassi. It is a split line now, 4 and 3.5. So we can give you Western Michigan -3.5 at bookmaker. This might be another game where there's a midweek line move in my favor. But the more I look at this game as well, I looked into this a little bit more and I started to think, this might be because Central Michigan also has some injuries. Their leading running back might not play here, and I wouldn't at all be surprised this one winds up closing at 5.5 or 6, closer to where it opened. Maybe I should buy this one back right now. Ian Cameron, another tough one. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, I could only back Western Michigan here from this. So that's a crushing loss for Central Michigan last week. And Western Michigan's 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So we talk about the long road that Central has to climb to get to bowl eligibility. Western just needs 1 win, and I don't think they'd mind getting that bowl eligible victory against a rival like Central Michigan. Tommy Lazzaro is simply not the next coming of Cooper Rush on this Central Michigan team. They missed that guy at the quarterback spot. Cooper Rush was a good quarterback for this program. Lazzaro hasn't been. He's barely completing 50% of his passes. 5 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's not going to cut it. John Wassink's been very good for Western Michigan. 62% completion, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Still bothers me at times laying points on the road with Western because their defense is still susceptible. But they have played Syracuse. They've played some pretty good offenses so far. I just don't know what's left in the tank for Central. So I'm going to lean here to Western Michigan laying the points on the road as well.
Yeah, and I was liking the under when this one came out, and it's now down to a 56. So is this going to be an official pick for you, Ian Cameron, or a pass?
It's been a good run, so why not? Let's add it on as an official pick.
Well, you could look at it the other way. You could be like, it's been a great run, so why foul it up unless you want to with a pick that you're not 100% sure about?
It's 4 right now, 4.5. It's doable. It's manageable at that number. I'll add it on. Why not?
Okay. So Ian Cameron's going to agree with Joe Gavassi. It's actually 3.5, 4 or 3.5. So we can give you the bookmaker line here. 3.5, Western Michigan, -3.5. Joe Gavassi's website, once again, is joegavassisports.com. There's a ton of great stuff there. Read lots of free articles, and I highly, highly recommend that people go visit it and see what's up there. This week, Joe Gavassi has hit us with NC State +17.5, TCU +8, Cincinnati +3.5, and Western Michigan -3.5, coming off a 2-1-1 week. Joe Gavassi, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Thanks for the kind words, Peter. Great doing the show with you guys today. Good luck this weekend to all.
Thank you very much, Joe
See you,
Gavassi.
Joe.
All right, so now we're going to wait to get Al McMorty, Big Al McMorty, on the line. While we're waiting to do that, there's one game that you want to talk about, Ian Cameron, and that is the Friday night college football game, Colorado State and Boise State. Boise State obviously is a huge favorite. They do have a bunch of injuries here, though. Clearly, talent-wise, Boise State should be a big favorite here, a huge favorite here. Colorado State can't stop anyone. I'm very tempted to take Boise State. I'm just not quite sure if 23.5 is too many points. What do you think, Ian Cameron?
Yeah, I think it is too many points. I think Colorado State is a situation where, again, with these teams that are showing signs of life after a dismal, disastrous, horrible start, and you start to see signs of life from that team, you can ride that team and cash tickets with them maybe 3, 4, 5 games in a row. And I think we might be seeing signs of that from this Colorado State team. They had a bye week 2 weeks ago. It had been a disastrous start, a tough schedule. They started with a team that is better offensively than people thought. They played Colorado. They've played Florida. They've played Arkansas. I mean, they've played some tough foes so far early in the season, Colorado State and Mike Bobo's team, and they suffered their lumps through it. They had a bye week 2 weeks ago. They looked into fixing the offense, getting KJ Carter-Samuels more comfortable. And sure enough, they come out of the bye. They beat San Jose State. Okay, that's not that impressive. Well, he wasn't happy about the defense coming out of that San Jose State game. They really focused on defensive improvement going into last week and notched a very impressive win against New Mexico just based on the fact that New Mexico's got a pretty good offense. Colorado State shut them down completely. The best defensive performance I've seen by far this season from Colorado State in that victory last week against the Lobos. I know going on the road, Boise State and Brett Rippon at quarterback, pretty good offensive team. Not going to be easy here, but look, they're 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread now, Colorado State, since the bye. And you look at Boise State long term. They haven't just been bad. They have been dreadful. They have been miserable as home favorites on this blue turf. Remember when Chris Peterson coached this team? Don't ever bet against Boise on the blue turf, right? Don't ever do that. Well, if you've been doing exactly that every time Boise State's been laying points at home the last 2 years plus with Brian Harsin, you're making some pretty damn good money. They've been a lousy home favorite. I think they're laying a few too many points here. Colorado State, a reignited football team these last couple of weeks and these last couple of wins. I think they've got just enough in them to keep this within this inflated number.
All right, Ian Cameron, it is true. Boise State, 3 out of their last 4 games have been huge margin ATS losses, and the line right now, plus 23.5, -105. So that's going to be an official pick from Ian Cameron. And we are now going to be joined by Big Al McMorty from BigAl.com. Thanks so much for joining us once again, Big Al McMorty. How are things going in general right now in the Big Al McMorty world?
Well, things are going great. We've been so hot lately. We're 35-14, our last 49 over the past couple of weeks. Having another terrific football season. We're up 43.1 stars on our top-rated plays. Going back 2.5 years, we're up 160 stars on our top-rated plays. Those are the games rated 3, 4, and 5 stars. So I've got absolutely no complaints at all, Peter. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing okay. I just made a couple of bets on the open. I made a couple of bets on the opening lines where the market so far has agreed with me, but people whose opinions I respect are warning me off the other side. And we see so much U-shaped line movement in the college football markets, don't we, Al McMorty? You'll see like a team opens at +6, they drop down to 4 or 3.5, and then by kickoff they're back up to 6.5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you see it both ways. I mean, you just can't assume that if a line's going up, it won't come back down, and you can't assume anything really. We see it all.
All right. Well, very happy to have you with us, Al McMorty. You're going to talk about 4 games right now. We'll see what you can give us for free in these videos at SBR Videos. Right now, we're going to talk about Colorado, Washington. An interesting game here, right? Colorado, of course, pretty impressive this year. They did lose at USC. Maybe some holes in their armor have been exposed a little bit. But Washington, coming off a tough overtime loss in Oregon, they're at home as a double-digit favorite. Did that game take a lot out of them, or do they bounce back here? I know they have a bunch of injuries, but from what I've been reading, the guys replacing them, the guys slated to replace them, are youngsters who might be even better. So maybe the injuries won't hurt Washington that much. It is a big spread here, a relatively low total. I was thinking about maybe a shot with the over. What's your take on this one, Al McMorty?
Well, we've talked about it for the last few years, Peter. One of the things I like to do is go against a college football team that opened the season with 5 or more victories, and then they finally lose their first game of the season. We call it the bubble burst theory in our handicapping circles, and that's the situation here with the Colorado Buffaloes. They started the season 5-0. They lost last week by 11 points to USC, their first loss of the season. And if you just go against those teams on the blind with nothing else factored into it, you're going to cash 58% over the last 38 seasons in college football. And there's nothing wrong with cashing 58% over almost 400 plays. So that's one reason I want to go against Colorado here. Another is the fact that the Washington Huskies have completely dominated this series. They've won each of the last 8 meetings and covered the spread in each of the last 8 meetings. And even more impressively, they've covered the spread by double digits in each of the last 6. So that's reason number 2 I'm going to go against Colorado. Finally, as you mentioned, the Washington Huskies off that upset loss last week in Oregon. I actually had a play on Oregon in that game, so that game didn't surprise me at all. But Pac-12 conference teams have gone 97-64 ATS off an upset loss if they were playing a 625 or better conference opponent in that current game. So I'm going to take the Washington Huskies here and lay the points, look for them to bounce back on their home turf in Seattle.
All right, well, the line has gotten bet down, which makes some sense in light of how huge the line was when it opened and how legitimately talented Colorado is this year. So I think the line movement in Colorado's favor makes some sense. It opened at 17. It's now down to 15.5, but at Bookmaker, it's already at 15. So Al McMorty will give you Washington -15, -110. Ian Cameron, Al McMorty makes a very compelling argument. What do you think?
I just got to say first, I heard Al's record, 35-14. When you're up 3 touchdowns with a record in a sport, you're doing something right. Congratulations to Al for that. That's fantastic. But Colorado and Washington, look, I went into that game thinking this is a big stepping spot kind of performance here for the Colorado Buffaloes, taking on the USC Trojans. It was a big-time opponent for them. What could they do about it? I didn't like what I saw out of Steven Montez last week. I mean, he looked like it looked like some of that early success he had was a bit of fool's gold, maybe a bit schedule related. I mean, you start to look at Colorado's early season schedule. There's not a lot of meat on that bone. The Nebraska win was supposed to be very impressive, and Nebraska's still looking for their first win on the college football season. And now I'm concerned you're going on the road. You're facing an elite defense. I've had concerns all year about Jake Browning. I don't know if this guy's got the ability to make big plays in this kind of price range, but I'd be worried about taking Colorado. And Laviska Shenault, this is a guy they've relied on so much at wide receiver. Like, they really rely on this guy, nursing now a toe injury that he suffered last week. That's a big concern for Montez and this offense going on the road against the caliber of defense that Washington can bring to the table. I was looking at Colorado early in the week, but the Shenault injury, just the way they played against USC last week, it's taken me completely off that side. And they might be actually walking into a little bit of a problem situation here in Seattle this weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There are some injuries on offense for Colorado that I forgot to mention in my intro that are also looming pretty large. So is this going to be a pass for you, Ian Cameron, or are you going to join Al McMorty and take Washington minus the points?
I'm going to pass because I still have some Browning issues. I'm not a big fan of that guy, but I'm going to pass. But yeah, Colorado, I was interested. Not anymore. Not even close.
Okay, sounds good. Now we're going to move to the NFL with Al McMorty here. Houston and Jacksonville, right? Two teams that really looked pretty bad last week. Jacksonville, of course, got blasted by Dallas, and Houston did beat Buffalo, but they could have easily lost that game. They did not look good. The offense was completely stalled out. Houston has now won 3 in a row straight up, but they're 1-5 ATS overall on the year, and they're just looking like, the Deshaun Watson isn't getting any kind of pass protection at all. Houston is looking like a team I definitely wouldn't want to bet on. Do I want to bet Jacksonville laying points? Not sure. I was thinking about the low total on the under at 42 or 42.5. Al McMorty, what do you like here?
Well, Ian and I talked about the Jacksonville-Dallas game last week, and I, opined that I thought Jacksonville was going to cover that spread, so I was only wrong by, about 35, 40 points.
Yeah.
So obviously you're never surprised when you lose a game, but you are kind of surprised when you lose by that much. That result really did shock me. And, the Jaguars, they're really missing Leonard Fournette right now. Because of a lack of production in its run game, Jacksonville has fallen behind early in the past 2 games, and it's been forced to rely more on Blake Bortles to move the ball downfield. And obviously that's not the recipe for success for Jacksonville. And Fournette didn't practice today. We're recording this on Wednesday. And, it's very possible that he's going to be sidelined once again. That being said, I'm still looking to play on Jacksonville in this ball game at home versus Houston, even though Jacksonville was blown out by the Chiefs and Cowboys in the last 2 games. But it must be noted, those 2 games were on the road. And Houston, of course, is coming off 3 wins, including 2 wins their past 2 games at home. So now you have a reversal in the schedule where Jacksonville's at home, Houston's now back on the road. And NFL teams have covered 64% going all the way back to 1980 if they were playing at home off back-to-back road losses and their opponent was off back-to-back home wins. I'm taking Jacksonville minus the points.
All right, it's now up to 5 or 5.5. We can give you -5, -110 at Pinnacle and the Greek. The line has been getting bet up. Ian Cameron, what do you think? Obviously, we know what Al McMorty has done his entire handicapping career. We know what you've been doing in these videos, Ian Cameron. So you guys have great long-term records, but on that one, man, that was a bad pick right there. Jacksonville last week. Al McMorty's going back to the well, though. Jacksonville -5 here. I'm thinking about just a shot with the under. What do you think, Ian Cameron?
Yeah, I was on Jacksonville too last week. I mean, what a clear wrong side loser. I'd like to lose them that way, though. Painless, get it over with nice and quick, and then don't have to sweat. It's over. It's done. We move on to the next day, the next game, whatever the case may be. That was the case with Jacksonville last week. I wouldn't talk Al out of coming back with Jacksonville, and I would lean in that direction here. I can't do it again. Because Blake Bortles, to me, the one thing you could rely on before last week, he'd bounce back after a bad game. He didn't bounce back. He was just as bad last week. That's a concern for me. But you look at this Houston team. Look at the last 3 weeks. Life and death to beat the banged up, battered, and bruised Colts in overtime. They should absolutely destroy Dallas. They outstatted them, outyarded them by a ton, controlled the game, controlled the line of scrimmage. And because Bill O'Brien decides let's run shotgun from the 1-yard line like a dope, among other things, they end up just barely winning that game in overtime against Dallas. Last week, I mean, Buffalo could have won that game. They absolutely could have won that game. They were right there. The Houston's offense is a mess right now. Deshaun Watson, not accurate. He got banged up in that football game too, and he did not look right at all, Deshaun Watson. Very interesting to see if that's a carryover to this game. And Jacksonville's defense has not looked good the last couple weeks, but this smells and feels like a get-right spot. Houston, life or death to win the last 3 games against, mediocre competition in 2 of those cases. I don't want Houston. I don't love the lay this kind of price with Jacksonville, but if I had to, lean Jags.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you something. What's up with the Jags defense? Because at the beginning of the year, we were like, oh, this is going to be a great, awesome team. Who cares about Blake Bortles? Because the defense is going to be so dominant. They looked lethargic and confused last week. And is that just an anomaly? Are they going to bounce back, Ian Cameron? And if so, what about the under, 42.5?
I think they are going to bounce back here because Houston's offensive line's been a problem all year. And when it's been a problem, Deshaun Watson's regressed a little bit because of that. And now you're on the road against a defense that I think still has pride. You got, Calais Campbell on this defense, Malik Jackson on this defense, Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Boye, 2 great corners on this defense with pride, trying to make amends for last week. I'll tell you what I think it was. I saw a lot of lethargic body language from Jacksonville last week. Bored, disinterested, didn't really look like they were locked in mentally, focused on the task at hand, focused on the Dallas Cowboys. I can't explain why that was. They just looked like they were lethargic, like they just were disinterested that entire football game. Not to excuse the defensive performance, that didn't look like the aggressive, mean, nasty, play with a purpose Jacksonville defense. I think this week they're going to try to get back to that, and I think you'll see a lot more of that.
All right, so maybe you do like the under then.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet this game over, not even maybe.
Okay, you wouldn't bet. Right. Okay, so but it's going to be a pass for you as far as our show is concerned, right?
Yep, pass all around. Yep.
But Al McMorty is going to take Jacksonville -5. The next game we're going to discuss, Carolina, Philly. Another interesting kind of tough one. Big line move in favor of Philly, though. They opened around 3.5 or 4. It's now up to 4.5 or 5. And, Philly blasted the Giants last week, but the Giants, anytime you're playing against the Giants where Eli Manning is just lost, you're likely to look a lot better than you really are. And before that, of course, the Eagles had 4 straight ATS losses. Now they're at home, giving points to Carolina. A flawed team, but certainly, with Cam Newton and that defensive front, always in any game, and not a team that I want to fade as an underdog. Al McMorty, what's your take on this one? Carolina, Philly. Big line move in favor of Philly so far.
Last week the Panthers were upset on the road by the Redskins, while Philadelphia won and covered on the road at the New York Giants. And I actually had plays in both of those two games, and I was fortunate enough to have had the point spread winner in both of those two games. But off those two results, I'm going to now back Carolina as the road underdog. One reason, Peter, is that teams off a straight-up loss as a road favorite. Those teams have cashed 61.6% since 1980 versus opponents off a win and cover as a road favorite. A second factor for me, of course, is Philadelphia being the defending Super Bowl champions. You look at what all the defending Super Bowl champions have done since 1980. If they come off a 20-point or greater victory, those teams have covered just 38% when matched up against an opponent off a straight-up loss. So I'm going to go against Philadelphia. I'm going to take Carolina here plus the points.
All right. Yeah, we'll see where this one closes. As of right now, the market move has favored Philly. That means we can give you Carolina +5 -105. That's the current line at Intertops. Ian Cameron, what do you think here? This is another game where I don't think both these teams are undervalued necessarily, but I kind of like both teams. Carson Wentz is obviously very impressive quarterback. The Eagles struggled on the offensive line in their last game, but then after Peters went out, they looked a lot better. So I don't really want to bet against Philly, and I don't really want to bet against Carolina with Cam Newton and that defense getting points. It's a tough one. What's your take, Ian?
Yeah, one of the great, mantras of our good SBR friend, the late, great Dave Malinsky, who did Point Blank on this thing, one of the things he always said was, lay 3, take 7. This is a lay 3, take 7 kind of game. That's what this feels like to me. If it was -3, I'd like Philly. If it's +7, I'd probably like Carolina. We're right in between right now. So I'm probably going to leave this one alone. But I will say this, Cam Newton's got to shore up that red zone. That was bad last week. The game was on the line against Washington. That game was there to be won, and he was just badly overshooting receivers out of the back of the end zone there. Not accurate at all with the football, with the game on the line. Lack of playmakers for Carolina. That's not that's not big-time wide receivers that they have. Funchess and Jarius Wright. It's not a great collective there as far as I'm concerned. So skill position talent concerns me with this team. Again, I think Philadelphia would win this game in my opinion, but I don't love laying 5. You're right. Carolina's just got that knack for hanging around in games. They rarely get blown out. They rarely get blown out. I could see this coming down to the wire. So it's a tough number for me to get a hold of. So it'll be a pass.
Okay, a pass for Ian Cameron. And the last game we're going to talk about with Al McMorty is the Ohio State game. Again, Al has given Washington -15, the Jags -5, and Carolina +5. And now we're going to talk about the Ohio State Purdue. Al McMorty, actually in the Low Shack in the Bag show last week, I did give the under in the Ohio State game, and that one cashed, but we were joking around. We predicted the final score to be Ohio State 56, Minnesota 3, and the game sneaking under 59.5. We wound up cashing the under pretty easily, but I was not at all expecting Ohio State to struggle as much as they did against Minnesota. Now they're going up against, on the road, a Purdue team that against inferior defenses to Ohio State's has really looked great in the passing game. They're catching 14 points. Now it's down to 13 or 13.5, though 14 was available earlier this week. Al McMorty, what's your take on this one?
Well, the Buckeyes are ranked number 2 in the country. They have that very gaudy 7-0 record, but they've been ice cold in Las Vegas as they failed to cover the point spread for each of their past 3 ball games. In contrast, Purdue has been paying off for the bettors. Boilermakers have now covered each of their last 4 games. They've won their last 3 straight up. A lot of people might think I might be on Ohio State here. That usually is the kind of game I want to take. I want to bet on the ice-cold team against the red-hot team, but I just can't do it. And I've got a momentum system on Purdue here. And what I like to do, when you get a home team playing a conference opponent, if they're not favored by 6 or more points, and of course here we have almost a 2-touchdown underdog, if you get that home team off back-to-back wins in which they've covered the point spread by double digits in each of those 2 games, those teams are 147 up, just 90 down against the spread. So I'm going to ride the momentum with Purdue at home as the double-digit home underdog.
All right. Again, 14 was widely available early in the week. Now it's not. So we're going to have to give you 13.5 plus 13.5. That's a market number. Ian Cameron, Ohio State undefeated, but 1-4 ATS last 5 games, including a result last week that certainly shocked me. It wasn't like the Penn State game where I was all over Penn State and they lost outright, but I definitely would have been on Ohio State if you'd given me a free play on the side on that one. Ian Cameron, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, this is a game I talked about on the roundtable show this morning. I believe in what Jeff Brom's doing at Purdue. I mean, early in the season they were really struggling defensively. They've started to get a little bit better that way. And you look at Ohio State, 0-3 ATS, their last 3 games. Their defense is allowing 370 total yards per game. That's not as good as we'd come to expect from this Ohio State team. This is only their second true road game of the season. The TCU game was a neutral field game in Texas. They only had 1 true road game before that. That was Penn State, life and death to win that game. So I've got concerns for Ohio State going on the road to West Lafayette here in this environment. Purdue's offense has taken off ever since Jeff Brom said, finally, enough of this quarterback shuffle. I'm going to settle on one guy, and that's David Blau, and he's been absolutely fantastic since taking over that starting role. Purdue's 3 losses, 4 points or less, granted not to the caliber of opponent that Ohio State is, but I think there's a few too many points, and Ohio State teams in the past have had trouble at Purdue over the years. Give me Purdue here. They're a red-hot ATS team, catching 13.5. Now, I got 14. I'll still go ahead with it at 13.5. I think they can hang in this game. I also like the over. We're going to go over the total as well. I'm going to have side and total. So Purdue plus the points over the total.
Wow, you want both of those officially, huh?
Official, yep.
Okay, so plus 13.5 minus 105. I'm going to quote the total here for you, Ian Cameron. It is a high total. We can give you, though, at Heritage, 66.5 minus 110. Heritage appears to have a market lean to the under. The market is very uncertain here. Anywhere from 66.5 to 68 is widely available. Bookmaker currently at 68. Heritage is 66.5, so 2 sharp books strongly disagreeing there. 66.5 minus 110. You want that one, Ian?
Yes, definitely. I think it's a high-scoring game.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so now let's just move on to the other games that Ian Cameron wanted to touch on. Al McMurray, do you have any opinions on these? Please chime in. If not, of course, that's totally fine. Mississippi State, LSU is the first game you want to talk about, Ian Cameron. This game, I did bet as soon as it came out, gave an official pick on the Low Shack in the Bag show, I think in the morning show, and I took Mississippi State. I also think that the game is likely to go under. I'd be leaning LSU team total under as well, but LSU, of course, off the big pounding of Georgia. Now Mississippi State, off of a bye, coming in here with a probably likely run-heavy game, and I'm thinking that it's more likely than not to be close. Mississippi State plus 7 is what I bet and gave. What do you like here, Ian?
I was really high on Mississippi State coming into the season. Lost, I believe, a couple of times with them. And then, of course, I jumped off the bandwagon. And lo and behold, before their bye week, what did they do? They played very well against Auburn and beat the Tigers. Although Auburn's definitely got their issues right now, as we saw last weekend, losing to Tennessee the way they did. So maybe that win, the luster has come off it just a little bit. But I'm still going to have to see LSU back up the win they had last week against Georgia with another good performance. Let's see if they can do it here. They were fantastic, and people are saying that's a proving point for Joe Burrow, the quarterback, who's been the one little question mark for this team. Well, hold on now. He had a big lead most of that game. We still have not seen him in the pressure cooker, fourth quarter, close game, behind. We might see that here in this game. I think the bye week, it's got an opportunity here for this Mississippi State team. Joe Moorhead, a chance to really iron things out. Get this quarterback playing better again. It's not been a great start for Fitzgerald completion rate wise, but you look at the recent meetings against LSU, 4-0 against the spread, last 4 meetings against the Tigers. They've done pretty well head to head against this football team. I like Moorhead in theory out of the bye week to maybe throw some wrinkles, some tricks, some gadgets in there offensively in that playbook against a very, very good LSU defense. And I think Mississippi, and with LSU, again, a huge win, the biggest win in the Ed Orgeron era, I think we can say, last week against Georgia. Is there a letdown? It's still a young group. I got to see them do it again. I'm going to take the points here with Mississippi State. Good spot for them. Dubious one for the home team.
Okay, yeah, I took that one as well at 7. At some of the rec books, there's still 7s available, but the books that I like to quote, there's only 6.5, so 6.5 minus 109. Is that okay for you, Ian Cameron?
That's fine, yep.
Okay, Al McMorty, what do you think? Letdown for LSU, Mississippi State plus the points?
First, I don't think there will be a letdown, primarily for the fact that they're playing at home instead of on the road. What my data shows is that these letdowns occur much, much more often on the road than in front of the home faithful. Sure. That being said, I don't want to take LSU in this spot because I don't want to go against a team with such defensive presence as Mississippi State. I'm not going to lay that kind of points to a team that has that kind of defense. So for me, this is just a pass. But with a gun to my head, I'd probably take LSU, but no, I'll pass.
Okay, and like I said, I would also be leaning under here and thinking about the LSU team total under as official picks as well. All right, Ian Cameron, the next game we're going to talk about 2 NFL games. The Pats against the Bears. The Bears came off a bye and lost to Miami in overtime. Maybe we give them a pass there because, there was a lot of turnovers mattered, and also the heat obviously affected the Bears in a major way. Now they're back home as a home dog against a tough Pats team, but I don't know. Gronk looks a little off to me, right? Brady, maybe a little bit off to me. And the Pats, of course, coming off a big Sunday night game. I'm thinking I want to hear more opinions from people whom I respect, and both Al McMorty and Ian Cameron definitely count as 2 people I respect. Chicago plus 3, is that a value play? What do you think, Ian?
It's a classic NFL situation in my mind. You got the New England Patriots, massive showdown against the Kansas City Chiefs, big-time win for them. They pull it out, 43-40. Fantastic football game. I was thoroughly entertained start to finish. Chicago, no Ryan Tannehill. We got to face Brock Osweiler. Oh, this is a layup for us. We're just going to walk onto that field and take care of business. Not so fast. And, of course, we all know what happened. Chicago takes money hand over fist once they announced Brock Osweiler's the quarterback. Sure enough, they lose outright, laying upwards of a touchdown in that game. Great situation here. I like Chicago back home here in this spot. You look at them, their defense will show up. Their defense has played better at home all season long than it has on the road. I think the heat of that South Florida heat and the overtime, especially once that game got in overtime, really wore down Khalil Mack and that pass rush. A pass rush gets worn down when it is really hot conditions. We saw that with Chicago late in that football game. They're back home. They're in colder elements. They're going to get after New England here in this game. The Patriots defense can be had. And I know Mitchell Trubisky made some critical mistakes last week, but they can be had. I think they're going to run it with Howard and Cohen against them, make plays and play action, because I think they'll be able to run the ball against the Patriots and have success doing it. I think it's a great situation all around to back the Bears, fade the Patriots coming off that Sunday night thriller. Yeah, I'll be on Chicago as the home dog, official play.
That's what I was thinking as well. I was thinking about maybe a shot with the under, but that would imply that I'm leaning Pat's team total under, which always makes me nervous. Ian Cameron, line shopping is so important. Would you like the Greek plus 3 plus 100 or Pinnacle plus 3.5 minus 129?
If I can get the hook, I'll pay up for it. So the 3.5 sounds good.
3.5 minus 129. Al McMorty, you think me and Ian Cameron are being stupid here, or do you think we're on the right side?
You mean taking the hook or just taking Chicago?
just liking the Bears at all.
No, I love Chicago here. You can make it a threesome. We will all be on the Bears plus the points.
All right.
So give me the price. Give me the prices again. It's minus 129 and plus 3.5. And what do you have there at plus 3?
Plus 3 is plus 100 at the Greek best line.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I'll take the plus 3 at even money then.
Okay, Ian Cameron's going to take 3.5 minus 129. Al McMorty's going to take the Bears plus 3 at plus 100, and I will go on as an official NFL play this week as well. I'll take the 3.5 minus 129. Ian Cameron, Al McMorty, and I all taking the Bears this week. That's what I was thinking when I analyzed this one, and now I feel more confident after hearing your opinions. And then the last game, Minnesota against the Jets. Of course, Minnesota beat Arizona by 10, so they pushed that one. And the Jets beat the Colts, but the Colts are a bad team. team, lots of injuries, a lot of luck factored into that game as well. I was thinking about Minnesota here. I was thinking about the under here. I do have a lot of respect for Darnold, though, so, I'm not, too eager to bet against the Jets as a home dog with Darnold at quarterback. What's your take on this one, Ian Cameron?
I'm looking at the New York Jets side here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really liking what I'm seeing from them at home the last few weeks. Sam Darnold impressing, and I'm starting to think Minnesota's defense is not all it's cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
They're battling injuries on that side of the football. Look at some of these guys that are out. Everson Griffins, of course, had that crazy, he's gone Coco Loco off the field. You've got Sendejo in the safety spot. He's got a groin injury. One of their better offensive tackles, Riley Reeves, injured. They've got a couple more defensive linemen that are battling injuries right now. So it's not the same Minnesota defense. And you've got the Jets in yet another great situation where I believe now they're at home 3 straight weeks. You don't usually see that. 3 straight home games in a row for the New York Jets. I still think Minnesota, there's something not right. I was not impressed last week against Arizona. That was a little bit of a sleepwalk from them. Rosen, if he doesn't turn the ball over quite as much, he moved the ball a little bit against that Minnesota defense on the road. I think this Jets offense is getting comfortable here. I'm going to look at the Jets here as a home underdog. I think Minnesota's not living on reputation as opposed to the current reality. I'll look New York Jets here as a home dog and actually lean over the total. I think there's value with Minnesota games over the total. They cashed another over last week. I think the defense is down a bit. Kirk Cousins in the offense, though, has continued to play at a reasonably decent level, and I think they'll put some points up on the board. So I'm going to look at the Jets and also the over in this game as official plays.
Maybe I was wrong about thinking about the under. The Jets right now, the line's gotten bet up. Opened at 3. We can give you 3.5 minus 115. And as far as the total, it's 46.5. Is that just a lean, or you want to make that one an official pick, Ian?
We'll make it official, too.
Yeah? You sure?
100%. Yep.
Okay. We can do that for you. Over 46.5 plus 100 is the current line at Pinnacle. Pinnacle, as of right now, appears to have a slight lean to the under at 46.5. So we can give you 46.5 plus 100 on the over. Al McMorty, what do you think? The Jets, I look at the Jets game last week. I feel like, the Indiana was not a formidable opponent there with all their injuries, and they got lucky. So I'm not sure what to make of the Jets right now. But again, Ian Cameron might also be right that he wasn't impressed with Minnesota's win either. Jets are catching points here. If they were given points, maybe I would love Minnesota here. But catching points, I just don't know. You have anything to say about this one, Al McMorty?
Yeah, I'm going to take Minnesota minus the points. The Jets fall into an awful lot of negative systems of mine that are based on them winning their last 2 games and also scoring a lot of points. I'll fade New York and I'll take Minnesota.
Okay, head-to-head. This is a split line, so we can give Al McMorty -3. William Hill has -120, but Bookmaker has -119. So Ian Cameron and Al McMorty going head-to-head on this one, and a perfect example of why line shopping is so important. Ian Cameron will get +3.5, -115, and Al McMorty will get Minnesota -3, -119. So just to review the plays, once again, Al McMorty is on Washington -15, Jags -5, Panthers +5, Purdue +13.5, Bears +3 plus 100, and Minnesota -3, -119. Ian Cameron is giving us NC State +17.5, Western Michigan -3.5, Colorado State +23.5, Purdue +13.5, and also the over in that one at 66.5. Mississippi State +6.5, the Bears +3.5 -129, the Jets +3.5 -115, and the Jets game over 46.5 plus 100, and I decided to throw on the Bears as well, taking +3.5 -129. Al McMorty's website is BigAl.com. Al McMorty, before we let you go, give a quick plug for your website, BigAl.com, for anyone who wants to know more about you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've been in business since 1992. So, obviously I've stood the test of time, having a red-hot football season. Over the past 2.5 seasons, our top-rated plays are 216 and 159 plus 160 stars. Those are the games rated 5, 4, and 3 stars. Also ranked number 1 in hockey last year by the Sports Monitor. We have a hockey play tonight for anyone interested. Just go to BigAl.com and click on Picks for Sale. We also have 4 free plays every day, and you can get free plays from myself, from Larry Ness, and also from Power Sports, and we have 4 free plays every day at BigAl.com. Just go to the homepage and also to the free picks page, and that's what you get there.
Sounds awesome. Al McMorty and Ian Cameron, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Good luck, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.